For example, you'll see this in our deportation plan, where because there are so many people that, this problem has just festered now and grown to such an insane degree that we can't have everything wrapped up, every single one of these people wrapped up in appeals processes for years, right? So we will have to have something like kind of emergency measures to ensure that those appeals can't slow things down and that those people are deported. But broadly, if you want to have a country that works, right, and a country that our great grandkids are going to be excited to live in, you do have to be thoughtful about this stuff, right? And there does need to be obviously an element of independence for the police. That obviously makes sense. But a lot of it comes down to, but clearly the way policing is done in this country right now is not working. I mean, I defy you to find any voter in this country who will tell you that policing is working really well, whether it's in London, our great capital city. People walk around with their smartphones like this. A man was stabbed to death, ostensibly just last week, right, in Mayfair for his watch.
Yeah.
And you got to ask yourself.
I think it was outside Harrods. And then
that was outside Harrods, yeah.
His Rolex stone.
Tragically, being robbed of his watch and stabbed to death. And, a knife crime is committed inside London every 30 minutes. I mean, these are like third world statistics. So policing is, and the reason for that is because you have gutless politicians unwilling. That's not the police's fault. That's gutless politicians unwilling to implement stop and search. Like, it's not difficult. It's the only thing that's difficult about it is being brave enough, like Nigel, who's been saying for years, we need to implement stop and search. You look at it's well documented.
It's more complicated than that, though, because it's also the police force has massively shrunk. So you presumably want to increase spending on the police force.
Look, we can increase spending, but again, just throwing more money at these things without solving these other, the incentives problem, giving people proper KPIs, saying stop and search is now important and we are making it the number one priority to get deadly weapons off our streets. Fine, then we can give them more money. If you just throw more money at these things, you get what you get with the NHS that we've had for decades.
Right.
Ever more money. The waiting list has gone up about 8-fold in the time that per capita, adjusted for inflation, spending on the NHS has grown by 50%. So just throwing money at
the
things.
Culture and
well,
the
I
way
think it's both. But this idea, that's all politicians ever do, right? We're going through more money at this, and nothing ever changes. If anything, it gets worse. If anything, it gets worse because that money then gets spent. I mean, go and look at talk to police officers, how much time they spend filling out, the diversity characteristics of people who are reporting crimes. And by the way, look how effective our police are to follow up and chase up people for social media posts. Whereas, if somebody can show the police, I'm using my Find My iPhone feature, they're in that house, my phone is in there and the police won't do anything, backed up by data. So the reason why people, even in and around here, will walk around with their smartphones clutching it for their dear lives is because the chances, if a smartphone is stolen in London, do you know what the odds are statistically that the perpetrator will even be identified? Not arrested, charged, gone
I'd be
to prison.
shocked if it's over 10%.
Under 1%. So when we say it's basically legal, you have if you go and nick somebody's phone,
basically legal.
It's basically legal. You virtually know that.
I shouldn't
if you
laugh,
want to,
but it's just,
if you look at all of the academic literature around this, cross-culturally, the way you reduce crime, people's propensity to commit crime is driven by the severity of the punishment and the likeliness of getting caught, the likelihood of getting caught, right? And in this situation, let me give you another example. There's a guy who's running around. So that's the police. Then you've got the judiciary who just refuse to put people in jail. Now we can talk about how the Tories added 6.5 million net new people through immigration in 14 years and they built 411 prison spaces for those people. 411.
Wow.
That's how insane it is. But
wait, what's that one small prison?
411 net new prison places. Yeah. It's crazy. And way fewer hospital beds, by the way. So that's why, everyone in this country knows it's so hard to get anything infrastructure-wise, GP appointment, dentist appointment. People wait 3 days in many cases at A&E. Imagine waiting 3 days. Tens of thousands of people wait 3 days or more in accident and emergency. Yeah. So the whole thing, we've had this population explosion and no infrastructure has been built. So we need a total reboot in all of these things. And that's my point. That yes, we need to spend more money and then we can get on to we need to grow the economy. But unless we totally change the incentives, the culture, have the right people, leadership matters. Leadership matters. Look, regardless of what you think about Elon's political exploits, there's a reason why all of his companies are insanely successful, right? The common element of him as a business leader, right? Great people want to work for him. He has this pick of the best talent in the world. And what we need is extraordinary talent density making the most important decisions in this country. Right now, we've got the opposite. We have Ed Miliband. We have a £1.2 trillion national budget. The two people making the most important decisions as to how that money is spent, Ed Miliband and Rachel Reeves. I defied, you could spend decades scouring the country to find two human beings less capable to spend that money. And I actually spent, before I came into politics, I really thought long and hard, why is it that cabinets in this country are not just kind of incompetent, but they're a cabal collection of the most incompetent specimens you could ever imagine, right? Not just Labour, but the Tories. How did we end up with Matt Hancock as our health secretary during the biggest health emergency since
That's
World War
such a good
II?
example.
Right?
Rachel Reeves is a good one. I run several businesses. There's no way in hell she'd ever get a job in any of them doing anything. But Matt Hancock, whatever he might be capable of, possibly, maybe he'd be okay at council, but he ran our health during a pandemic. So I still think about that once a month.
Yeah, but it's not just them. All sorts of clowns, right, that you find in these positions. And so why is that? I'll tell you why I realised that. And this is, again, what convinced me that actually, no, it has to be a new entity like Reform that had any chance of turning this thing around. Is I worked it out. In order to become the leader of one of the two old parties, Labour and the Tory party, the only way you can do it, and therefore become Prime Minister potentially, is to buy off your senior MPs with the highest offices in the land. And your most senior MPs, politics is not a meritocracy. It is kind of it's actually the opposite of a meritocracy, right? And the evidence of that is the people bubbling to the top. Why do you have so many clownish characters at the top? That's not, if there's one, that's a bug. If it's all the time with pretty much no exceptions, then that's the feature. That's what the system does. The reason is because they have to buy those positions off. And those MPs they're buying off are just the ones who are the best at doing politics. And all anyone does in politics, as I've found, outside of our Reform MPs, basically, and our Reform people and our councillors and basically Reform people, all anybody does is power maximize for themselves over 24 hours, maybe 48 hours. And if you think about imagine what would happen if you ran a business that way. It wouldn't last very long, right? But actually, if you are not doing that in politics, in the two old parties, it's so maladapted to the environment, you just get spat out. And there's been some examples of that, right? And now the people who've been spat out sort of pop up in podcasts and stuff. And that's why, again, we have to have a totally different approach. We need much high quality people. So we need extremely talented, extremely high integrity people who are patriots. That would be a great start, right? And that's what we're working on. We already have a good number. We're going to need a lot more. People are listening to this and watching this. We want to hear from you because we're going to build that team. And then you're going to need these people to be high agency, working as a team, united behind a leader. That's the other really important point. I mean, the Tories, how many they got through? 6 prime ministers. At one point, we had 3 chancellors in a week. How can you seriously, right? Like, insane. And so, again, unapologetic about this. We are united behind Nigel. That means that he has the authority to be able to make high conviction decisions. He's a magnet for great talent. We've already got exceptional people, both frontline and behind the scenes. But the talent density is growing like this. It is growing like this. And so, do we have the complete set? Yeah, no. Do we have all of the answers in terms of these detailed policy plans? And I said probably hundreds of pages of legislation. It will be shock and awe those first sort of 100 days when Nigel arrives. Now, we don't have executive orders like Trump has, right, in this country. And that might not be the worst thing because obviously the downside of executive orders, great, you get it immediately. The downside is that it can be just as quickly reversed by your adversary if they win next time. So we are going to come in with a plan. We're going to move at great speed and efficiency. And we've got excellent lawyers working on this stuff for us as we speak.
Thanks for watching this clip from The Winston Marshall Show. You can click here to watch the full episode. And for more clips like this one, don't forget to subscribe. And as always, be well.